Dr. Rachel Keene had performed 43 military working dog euthanasias in her 6 years at Oceanside Military Veterinary Hospital in San Diego. Each one hurt, the betrayal in trusting eyes, the final tail wag before sedation, the moment when fierce loyalty simply stopped. But protocol was protocol. When a K-9 was deemed non-rehabilitatable due to aggression, medical unfitness, or behavioral degradation, termination was authorized. At 34, Rachel had learned to compartmentalize. She was a veterinarian, not a savior. Her job was to provide humane care, and when care wasn't enough, humane ending. The military working dogs who passed through her facility were assets, not pets, equipment that occasionally required disposal. That's what she told herself, anyway. Today's case was K-9'S, call name, Atlas, a 9-year-old German Shepherd with a distinguished combat record spanning 7 deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. The file was thick: explosive detection, patrol work, PTSD support for his handler. Commendations filled 3 pages, but the final 2 years told a different story. Severe handler dependency disorder following handler separation, the psychiatric evaluation read. Aggressive behavior toward facility staff, non-responsive to retraining protocols, multiple incidents of cage aggression, food guarding, and attempted bite, recommended disposal. Commander Derek Walsh, the K-9 program director, had scheduled the euthanasia for 1,600 hours on Friday afternoon. He wanted it done quietly, efficiently, before the weekend. Walsh was 47, career Navy, with the kind of command presence that made subordinates snap to attention and ask questions later. "This dog's been nothing but trouble for 2 years," Walsh told Rachel during their morning briefing. His voice held no emotion, just administrative fatigue. Former handler disappeared after discharge. Dog's been deteriorating ever since. Put him down humanely and file the paperwork. I want this closed before Monday. Rachel had reviewed Atlas's behavioral logs. The pattern was concerning: increasing aggression, refusal to accept new handlers, destructive behavior when separated from personal items belonging to his original handler. Chief Petty Officer Nathan Cross, discharged in 2021 after a training accident. Handler dependency disorder wasn't uncommon in military working dogs. The bond between operator and K-9 could be so intense that separation caused behavioral collapse, dogs refusing food, becoming aggressive, losing their working drive entirely. Most could be rehabilitated with patient retraining and new handler placement, but some couldn't. Atlas apparently fell into the latter category. At 15:45 hours, Rachel entered the sterile procedure room where Atlas waited in a reinforced kennel. The space was clinical: stainless steel exam table, locked medication cabinet, disposal protocols posted on the wall. Through the kennel's wire door, she could see Atlas sitting at perfect attention, despite his aging joints and graying muzzle. 9 years old was ancient for a working dog. Most retired by 7 due to physical breakdown from the demands of deployment, joint damage, hearing loss, psychological trauma. That Atlas had served through 7 deployments spoke to exceptional resilience. That he was being euthanized for behavioral issues rather than medical necessity felt wrong. But Rachel's feelings didn't change protocol. She prepared the sodium pentobarbital injection, the same barbiturate used for humane euthanasia across veterinary medicine. 2 doses, sedative first to ensure the dog felt no pain, then the final injection that would stop his heart within seconds. Quick, painless, humane. Following standard protocol, Rachel conducted one final examination before euthanasia. She approached the kennel slowly, speaking in the calm tone she'd learned worked best with anxious dogs. "Hey, Atlas, I'm Dr. Keen. I'm going to open the door now, okay?" She expected the aggression noted in his file, growling, lunging, the defensive behaviors that had justified his termination order. Instead, Atlas remained sitting, his amber eyes tracking her movement with professional assessment rather than hostility. Rachel opened the kennel door. Atlas didn't move. "Come here, boy," she said gently, gesturing. Atlas stood, slowly, his hips stiff with arthritis, and walked to her. No aggression, no fear, just the measured approach of a working dog following commands. Then he did something that made Rachel's breath catch. Atlas leaned forward and placed his head against her chest, pressing his weight against her in what looked unmistakably like a hug. It was a trained comfort behavior, the kind used specifically for PTSD support work, where dogs provided physical grounding during panic attacks or emotional episodes. Rachel froze. The file said Atlas was a patrol and detection dog. Nothing about PTSD support training, nothing about specialized behavioral work that would require this kind of intimate comfort gesture. As Atlas held the position, Rachel's hand automatically moved to steady him. Her fingers brushed against his collar. Heavy tactical nylon, standard issue. But beneath the matted fur around his neck, she felt something unusual. A small cylindrical capsule, barely larger than her thumb, embedded in a modified collar compartment. She pulled back, examining the collar more carefully. The capsule was military-grade waterproof, the kind used for emergency medical information or classified material transport during covert operations. Rachel had seen them before during joint training exercises, but only on dogs assigned to Tier 1 Special Operations units. Not patrol dogs, not detection dogs, SEAL team operators' partners. Her hands started shaking as the implications crystallized. Atlas's file said he was a standard military working dog assigned to conventional forces. But this collar modification, this specific capsule design, was used exclusively for special operations missions, where dogs might need to carry intelligence across hostile territory, where evidence needed to survive even if the handler didn't. Rachel looked at Atlas, who'd returned to sitting at attention. His eyes held steady on hers, not with the blank aggression of a dangerous dog, but with the focused intelligence of an operator waiting for orders. "What are you carrying?" she whispered. Atlas's tail moved once, a deliberate thump against the concrete floor. Rachel's mind raced through the file again. Nathan Cross, handler, discharged 2021 after training accident. Atlas transferred to Commander Walsh's direct supervision. 2 years of deteriorating behavior, fabricated aggression incidents, and now euthanasia scheduled quietly on a Friday afternoon, with orders to file paperwork immediately and dispose of the body before anyone asked questions. This wasn't about handler dependency disorder. This was about destroying evidence. Rachel looked at the clock. 15:58 hours. Commander Walsh would call in 2 minutes to confirm the procedure was complete. She had the syringe prepared, the dog sedated and compliant, the authorization signed. All she had to do was follow protocol, inject the barbiturate, file the paperwork, go home for the weekend. Let Atlas, and whatever he was carrying, disappear into the crematorium. Instead, she made a decision that would either save a dog's life or end her career. Rachel attached a cardiac monitor to Atlas, watched the screen show normal sinus rhythm, then deliberately adjusted the settings until the readout displayed irregular patterns. Medical protocol was clear. Euthanasia required stable vital signs. An irregular heartbeat mandated 24 hours of observation. When Commander Walsh called at 1600 hours exactly, Rachel kept her voice professionally neutral. "Sir, K-9'S is showing irregular cardiac rhythm during pre-procedure monitoring. Protocol requires additional observation before proceeding with euthanasia. I'm moving him to ICU for overnight monitoring." Walsh's voice went cold. "Doctor, that dog is scheduled for termination. I don't care about irregular heartbeats. Complete the procedure." "Sir, veterinary medical protocol overrides administrative scheduling. If I euthanize a dog with unstable vitals, I'm liable for malpractice. I need 24 hours. The silence stretched. Then, "You have until tomorrow at 1600 hours. Not 1 minute more." The line went dead. Rachel looked at Atlas, who sat patiently in the procedure room, still wearing the collar with its hidden capsule. She had 24 hours to figure out what this dog was protecting, and why Commander Walsh was so desperate to destroy him before anyone discovered the truth. "Okay, Atlas," she said quietly. "Let's find out what you know." Rachel worked through the night. The veterinary hospital was designed for 24-hour care, but Friday nights were typically quiet, only emergency cases and critical patients. She moved Atlas to a private recovery kennel, locked the door, and began the delicate process of extracting the capsule from his collar. Atlas remained calm throughout, as if understanding that she was helping rather than harming. His training was evident. Absolute discipline, no stress behaviors, perfect compliance. The capsule unscrewed to reveal a micro SD card sealed in waterproof casing. Rachel's hands trembled as she held it. This was classified military property. Accessing it without authorization could mean court-martial, but leaving it unexamined meant letting Atlas die for carrying evidence she didn't understand. She needed help, someone with military clearance, technical capability, and, most critically, someone she could trust. Lieutenant Maya Torres answered on the third ring. "Rachel, it's midnight. What's wrong?" Rachel and Maya had met during a joint training exercise 18 months earlier. Navy intelligence officers coordinating with veterinary medical staff on K-9 operational health. They'd bonded over shared frustration with military bureaucracy and maintained contact afterward. "Maya, I need a favor. Big one. Possibly career-ending for both of us." 20 minutes later, Maya arrived at the hospital with encryption-breaking software and security clearance that exceeded Rachel's pay grade by several levels. She took one look at the SD card and went pale. "Where did you get this?" Maya asked carefully. "Atlas, the K-9 scheduled for euthanasia. It was in his collar." Maya inserted the card into her laptop. Encryption protocols layered the files, military-grade security requiring multiple authentication steps. She worked for 40 minutes, her expression darkening with each successfully decrypted layer. Finally, she turned the screen toward Rachel. "You need to see this." The files contained mission logs, photographs, and audio recordings from Operation Sandstorm, a 2021 SEAL mission in Syria officially listed as a success with 0 casualties and high-value intelligence recovered. The after-action reports praised mission execution and command leadership. But the records on Atlas's collar told a different story. Chief Petty Officer Nathan Cross had been the K-9 handler on the operation. His helmet camera footage showed the team entering a compound, securing the target, and preparing for extraction. Then, audio captured with devastating clarity. Cross's commanding officer, then Lieutenant Commander Derek Walsh, executing 2 unarmed Syrian civilians at point-blank range. The recordings captured Walsh's voice. "They saw our faces. Can't risk intelligence leak. Neutralize them." Cross's response, "Sir, they're non-combatants. Rules of engagement." Walsh, "I give the orders. You follow them, or I'll report you for disobeying in combat. Your choice, Chief." The footage showed Cross backing away, refusing to participate. Walsh had killed both civilians himself, then destroyed the compound's security cameras. The official report listed the deaths as insurgent casualties during objective seizure. But Cross had recorded everything, had uploaded it to Atlas's collar, the one piece of equipment that would stay with him through extraction, debrief, and return to base. Evidence that would survive even if Cross didn't. Maya scrolled through additional files. Cross's personal logs detailed his plan. Report through proper channels upon return to base. Provide evidence to NCIS. Request transfer away from Walsh's command. The logs ended 3 weeks after returning stateside. "What happened to Nathan Cross?" Rachel asked, though she already knew the answer. Maya pulled up military records. Training accident. Drowned during routine dive exercise. Investigation ruled it accidental. Equipment failure combined with medical emergency. Body recovered, cremated per family request. Case closed. "Except it wasn't an accident," Rachel said. "No," Maya agreed. "Walsh killed him, or had him killed, and then took control of Atlas to destroy the evidence." Rachel looked at the behavioral file with new understanding. Every aggression incident, documented over 2 years, all fabricated. Every failed retraining attempt, sabotage by Walsh to justify euthanasia. Atlas hadn't developed handler dependency disorder. He'd been protecting his handler's final mission, defending the collar with the only tools a dog had: his teeth. "We have to report this," Rachel said. "To who?" "Walsh is a commander with significant pull. We're a veterinarian and a mid-level intelligence officer. His word against ours." "Not just his word. We have Atlas's recordings." Maya hesitated. "Rachel, accessing this without authorization. We've both committed felonies, and even if we report it, Walsh can claim the evidence was tampered with, that you fabricated it to save a dog scheduled for euthanasia." Rachel thought about the syringe she'd prepared that afternoon, about how close Atlas had come to dying with his secret intact, about Nathan Cross, who'd done the right thing and been murdered for it. "We need someone with authority to override Walsh, someone who'll believe us." Maya's eyes narrowed. "I know someone. Captain Evan Strand, Naval Special Warfare Command investigator. He's been looking into Cross's death for 2 years, but couldn't get enough evidence to challenge the official story." "Call him," Rachel said. The turning point came at 200 hours. Rachel was alone in the veterinary hospital with Atlas when her security access beeped. Someone with override authority had entered the building. Commander Walsh appeared in the recovery ward, a doorway with 2 MPs flanking him. He carried a revised euthanasia order stamped with red priority markings. Immediate execution. Rabies protocol. Rachel's blood went cold. Rabies protocol allowed immediate euthanasia without medical review, bypassing her 24-hour observation order. It was a lie. Atlas showed no rabies symptoms, but Walsh had the rank to make it stick. "Dr. Keene, K-9'S has exhibited behavior consistent with rabies exposure," Walsh said, his voice flat. I'm invoking emergency protocols. You will euthanize this animal immediately, or I will have you removed and complete the procedure myself. Atlas stood in his kennel, hackles raised, reading the threat in Walsh's posture. Sir, this dog shows no rabies symptoms. Are you disobeying a direct order, doctor? Rachel looked at the MPs, young enlisted, clearly uncomfortable, but following orders. Looked at Walsh, whose expression showed absolute confidence that he'd won. Looked at Atlas, who'd carried evidence for 4 years through hell and bureaucracy, protecting his handler's truth with the loyalty that defined his breed. She was out of time, out of rank, out of options. Then the door behind Walsh opened. Captain Evan Strand walked in, flanked by 2 NCIS agents in tactical gear. He was 52, grey-haired, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades in special operations, his eyes, hard and cold, locked on Walsh. "Commander Walsh," Strand said, his voice ice over steel. "Step away from that kennel." Walsh turned, surprise flashing before professional composure reasserted. "Captain, this is a routine medical procedure. That dog is a material witness in a murder investigation." Strand cut him off. He held up a tablet showing Atlas's mission files, the recordings Meyer had forwarded 20 minutes earlier. "Touch him, and I'll have you in the brig for evidence tampering, obstruction, and whatever else I can make stick while we dig up Nathan Cross's body." Walsh's face went white, then red. "You can't. This is chain of command. Proper protocol." Strand stepped forward. His voice dropped to barely controlled fury. "Nathan Cross was my operator before you inherited his team. Atlas was his partner. You killed one and tried to kill the other to cover up war crimes. Your command ends now." The MPs, realizing they'd been used to facilitate a cover-up, stepped away from Walsh. One actually moved his hand to his sidearm, positioning himself between Walsh and the kennel. Atlas, sensing the shift in power dynamics, moved to Rachel's side and sat, perfect operational discipline, waiting for his next command. Walsh tried one last bluster. "This is fabricated evidence. She accessed classified files without authorization. And you ordered the execution of unarmed civilians," Strand said. "Then murdered a Navy SEAL to cover it up. We're done talking." NCIS agents moved forward with handcuffs. The NCIS investigation moved with the methodical precision of military justice. Every file on Atlas's SD card was authenticated, cross-referenced, and verified. Helmet camera footage matched mission timestamps. Audio analysis confirmed Walsh's voice. Geolocation data placed the recordings at the exact compound, listed in Operation Sandstorm's classified after-action report. Nathan Cross's body was exhumed from Arlington National Cemetery. Forensic pathology revealed evidence inconsistent with accidental drowning, bruising patterns suggesting restraint, lung tissue analysis showing forced submersion, toxicology detecting sedatives not mentioned in the original autopsy. Commander Derek Walsh was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder of foreign nationals, 1 count of murder of a U.S. service member, conspiracy, evidence destruction, obstruction of justice, and 17 violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The 2 MPs who'd accompanied him to the veterinary hospital faced lesser charges for participating in attempted evidence destruction. The case triggered broader investigations. How had Walsh's war crimes gone undetected? Why had Cross's death been ruled accidental without thorough investigation? What oversight failures had allowed a K-9 to be scheduled for euthanasia when he was carrying evidence of murder? The story made national news, not primarily for the scandal of a SEAL commander's crimes, but for the extraordinary loyalty of a military working dog who'd guarded his handler's truth for 4 years, despite being labeled dangerous, unwanted, and disposable. Atlas became the center of a military justice precedent. Evidence preserved and protected by a military working dog led to the first conviction of a Navy SEAL commanding officer for murder of civilians and fratricide. Legal scholars debated the admissibility of K-9 transported evidence. Animal behaviorists testified about the intelligence required for Atlas to differentiate between normal handling and threat to his handler's legacy. Rachel testified as Atlas's advocate during the court-martial. She explained how every aggression incident documented in his file had been Atlas defending the collar, protecting his handler's final mission with the only tools a dog possessed. His refusal to accept new handlers hadn't been pathology. It had been purpose. Commander Walsh labeled Atlas as suffering from handler dependency disorder, Rachel told the court. But this wasn't dependency. It was fidelity. Atlas understood that his handler had given him a mission: protect this evidence. And he never quit, even when it meant being labeled dangerous, even when it meant facing euthanasia. The Navy awarded Atlas a commendation for service beyond normal duty, formally recognizing that his 2-year behavioral problems had actually been faithful execution of his handler's final orders. He was officially retired with all full honors, a pension for his care, and the designation of Military Working Dog Emeritus. Captain Strand personally requested custody. As Nathan Cross's former team leader, he felt responsibility for both the handler who'd been murdered and the K-9 left behind. But during Atlas's official retirement ceremony, something unexpected happened. In the veterinary hospital courtyard, surrounded by SEALs from Nathan Cross's former unit and media documenting the historic case, Atlas was offered 3 potential homes: Strand's family, a specialized MWD retirement facility with expert behavioral care, or Dr. Rachel Keene. The dog sat before each person, assessing, remembering. The crowd fell silent, waiting. When Atlas reached Strand, the captain knelt, offering his hand. Atlas sniffed carefully, acknowledged with a single tail wag. Respect, but not choice. At the retirement facility representative, Atlas sat politely, professional, but detached. When he reached Rachel, Atlas leaned his head against her chest. The same gesture that had saved his life, the trained comfort behavior that had first alerted her. Something was wrong. Rachel wrapped her arms around him, feeling the weight of 9 years, 7 deployments, 4 years of carrying evidence, and 2 years of being labeled dangerous because he refused to abandon his mission. "You're safe now," she whispered. "Mission complete." Atlas's tail wagged, slow, deliberate, satisfied. 6 months later, Rachel had opened a specialized veterinary practice for retired military working dogs, funded by a Navy grant established in Nathan Cross's name. The facility provided medical care, behavioral rehabilitation, and end-of-life services for K-9s transitioning from military service to civilian retirement. Atlas worked beside her, not as a patient, but as a therapy presence for other K-9s struggling with handler loss, deployment trauma, and the difficult transition from operational purpose to retirement. His calm presence, his obvious intelligence, his survival story, all provided hope for dogs and handlers facing similar challenges. Rachel's practice had also changed protocol across all military veterinary facilities. Every euthanasia now required third-party review, handler notification attempts, and behavioral assessment by independent specialists. Atlas's case had revealed how easily the system could be manipulated by those in positions of authority. The reforms ensured no other K-9 would be destroyed to hide evidence or silence inconvenient truths. On the anniversary of Nathan Cross's death, Rachel and Atlas attended the memorial service at Arlington National Cemetery. Cross's name had been added to the Wall of Honor after his death was reclassified from training accident to killed in action, murdered for upholding the rules of engagement his commanding officer had violated. The ceremony was small but significant. SEALs from Cross's unit, NCIS, agents who'd worked the case, Maya Torres, who'd cracked the encryption, Captain Strand, who'd ensured justice was served, and Atlas, wearing a ceremonial service vest, sitting at perfect attention despite his graying muzzle and arthritic hips. When the chaplain finished the formal prayer, Atlas did something no one had commanded. He walked to the memorial wall, stood on his hind legs with visible effort, and placed one front paw against Nathan Cross's engraved name. The gesture held absolute intentionality, not random behavior, but deliberate acknowledgement, recognition of the handler who trusted him with evidence, completion of the mission that had defined 4 years of his life. Strand, standing beside Rachel, said quietly, "Nathan always said Atlas would never quit a mission. Took us 4 years to understand he was still on one." Rachel looked down at the graying shepherd, who now carried a new collar, one without hidden capsules, without secrets, without the weight of evidence. Just a simple tag engraved with 3 words: Atlas, hero, home. The dog who'd been scheduled to die because he knew too much had become the dog who lived because he refused to forget. His loyalty had exposed war crimes, revealed murder, and changed military protocols. But more than that, Atlas had proven something fundamental about the bond between handler and K-9, that it transcended death, survived bureaucracy, and persisted even when the entire system demanded silence. Rachel had been a veterinarian who followed protocol, performed euthanasias as authorized, and compartmentalized the emotional cost. One shocking detail in a final examination, one trained comfort gesture from a dog labeled dangerous, had transformed her into the guardian of truth that couldn't be silenced. As they left Arlington, Atlas walked beside Rachel with the steady confidence of a dog who'd completed his mission and found his home. He couldn't erase the past, couldn't bring back Nathan Cross or undo the murders Walsh had committed, but he'd ensured that the truth survived, that justice was served, that his handler's sacrifice wasn't forgotten. And sometimes that was enough.